Bento, Doofy Motor made a chapter you can't even do a video on. Just you wait and see, you little shit. I will prove you wrong. It's Chainsaw Man Tuesday, which we will now rename to Little D's Panties Tuesday. Okay, hold up. Can someone just explain to me what the freak is going on in this chapter of Chainsaw Man? Like, did Denji really just completely avoid the gaping hole in Little D and agree to help all because he saw her panties and thighs? Also, bro, for some reason, the little ribbon on the front just cracked me up. I have no idea why, but that's a conversation for later in the video. More importantly, I was right! Oh my god, I was right for once. Can you freaking believe it? I got a theory correct! So it turns out that the Manga Plus translation is sticking with Lil D for Death's name, and I know a lot of people, and when I say a lot, I mean like the same 10 people on Reddit and Twitter were complaining about this name not being an accurate translation, or at the very least, a kind of funny local translation, and thus is like god tier awful, and we should just like cut out our eyes, because that is clearly the most important thing happening in the world right now, right? Okay, but seriously, taking a more balanced stance here, I for one understand why people would want to have a more accurate-ish translation, but I also think this literally doesn't harm anything, and if anything, it actually really fits Chainsaw Man. Plus, it is fun, and it doesn't harm this character at all. Like, are we really supposed to sit here and treat Little D like she doesn't go around flashing her panties to a ton of people and eat spaghetti like she can't get enough? I mean, I love spaghetti too, but I do think there are arguments both valid to both sides, so let's meet in the middle and just like, I don't know, hug it out, okay? Like, make love, not Warcraft? But I must admit, for a chapter that was like, I don't know, 3 minutes in anime time, this was actually really fun. I think it is because I'm biased, as I love Lil D and always have. She's got that Rei Ayanami meat face and just, I don't know, man, she's just hilarious. But it turns out that Denji was carried all the way to the school and in this classroom and put into a chair as I guess D just sat there and stared at him, waiting for him to wake up. I don't know, that honestly, the more and more I think about how ridiculous that is, the more I absolutely think that this is something D would do. But he was carried by Little D and Fammy, who was lying under a window and just sleeping peacefully on the floor. And oh my god, dude, I cannot lie, this was super cute and totally something Fammy would do. It also makes her rather endearing because, yeah, I mean, she is a girl failure, but that is her charm. She's like Kobeni, but a bit more feral. I can't wait until we get that fan art of her with her fangs out and some cat ears and a choker, because Fammy just screams cat girl after this chapter. But back to Lil D and Denji, she properly introduces herself this time as Lil D, or the Death Devil. Denji responds with a look that may in fact be iconic, because he is so sus hearing that name. And honestly, I would be too. It makes me wonder if you say Lil D 3 times in the mirror, it will summon her. Someone report back on that, for science of course. But I also have to admit, I love the art for D in this chapter quite a bit, and this is the first of like many images from her I very much enjoyed. It really does feel at this point that Fujimoto is really inspired to draw D. Like, she has got to be one of the most consistently drawn and just great looking characters throughout most of part 2. I also love Denji's incredulity, and D is just like, I'm for real. Her deadpan demeanor, I mean, it's just legendary. But Denji then suddenly remembers Asa and Yoru, and this is where the chapter gets, we'll say, a bit more interesting. As it so turns out, the fear of war surged in a way that, I don't know what the accent was, that D had not anticipated after America had reinvented the nuclear bomb and dropped it on the Soviet Union. And because of this, Yoru is now in control of Asamitaka's, fun name to say, body, and is off killing devil hunters while she is gathering her devil army. And for the sake of brevity, I will theorize about that devil army and what it could be later in the video, just so you know I didn't gloss over it because of YouTuber things. But turns out that Denji is now in danger and one of Yoru's prime targets. If Yoru finds him, she will turn him into a weapon, and a weapon that she will eventually use to erase Lil D, which just for that alone, I will absolutely revert my love for Yoru. Ass or no ass. But this is actually the coolest part for me because Yoru is planning to use Denji to erase death to start an eternal World War II that can and will never end, turning the planet into a host for humans to war and hate eternally. I was right, bitches. This is the one time I was right. I was right. I was fucking right. I was right. I'm so happy to say that. I was right! Doing so would make Yoru the most powerful being in all of existence. Nothing, not even Chainsaw Man, Denji, Pochita, Asa, Kishibe, or even Control would be able to stop Yoru because nobody can die. Therefore, Yoru is eternal, and so is everyone else. Here is where things get rather interesting. Lil D's powers at some point were supposed to activate and wipe out all of mankind, and through her own efforts to stop that, it actually ended up changing the future and made everything much worse. I think we can very easily speculate that this is because D, through being friends with Asa and the other human devil hunters, grew attached to them and all of the good traits of humanity that then changed her further. In other words, I think Lil D saw hope in humanity, and because she is a devil, it infected her and probably balanced out her nature as a devil a little bit. Since devils are essentially embodiments of the most negative and worst aspects of humanity. It is just yet another instance of how humans are able to affect devils just as much as devils may affect humans. I mean, think about it. If they can be a host of their fears, then for sure, they can be a host for their hope. At least a little bit. Still, Denji doesn't believe Little D one bit. Denji just sees her as this cringy girl with a story stretched out more than Mr. Fantastic. And I think what is so funny about Denji not believing her is that she literally... She has starter earrings and, I don't know, freaking devil eyes. I mean, that's literally the same eyes that Makima, Nayuta, Yoru, and Fami have. Bro, come on. It's like, duh. And this is when a new voice chimes in, or rather an old voice. Turns out that Swordman, Miro Sugo, has finally returned, most likely confirming that yes, once again, the hybrids are all most likely alive and returning, and I was so happy to see him back, honestly. I know it's like not as hype as like a Rize or whatever, but man, Miro Sugo, he's a pretty cool character, so I'm happy to see him back, even though I'm not as excited. But I'm telling you guys, I don't know, I feel it in my bones. This time, it's a little different. I think Rize is coming back soon, and I think it is happening this year too. I mean, just think about it. Rize arc is coming out in October, and we are not that far off from October. But Miro tells D to show Denji her stomach, and like a broken clock, reveals the deal. This is a bit of a comedic genius from Fujimoto because while Miro is like, get it now, she's clearly a devil, Denji immediately looks at her panties and can only focus on that and her quite supple thighs. And I am pretty sure Fujimoto as well lost focus on the plot because Denji just loses his mind and returns to monkey as we get several highly detailed and explicit poses of Lil D's lower half. And of course, since this is Fujimoto, the chapter ends with a blatant shot of her caked up butt as Denji is ogling those thighs and agrees to help her. Just because of that. Not because she has a hole in her body to prove that she's a devil, no, but because, well, she flashed him. I don't have to tell you how absolutely stupid this moment was, but it was absolutely hilarious and a great way to bring some comedic levity to the last handful of arcs, which have been absolutely depressing when you think about all that has happened in those arcs. So yeah, is it a bit stupid we got D's cheeks for a closer? Yeah, probably. Do I care? Do you care? Do we care? Well, this isn't Reddit or Twitter, so no, I think we pretty cool and we pretty chill about it. Also, hope to God this video doesn't get demonetized because of D's underwear. So, about my theory on the Devil Army stuff that Yoru is building. I think this is the most important part of this chapter and cannot be ignored despite it being in the literal middle of this chapter in between Catgirl Fami vibes, Miro Sugo returning, butt cheeks and thighs. I mean...
Pretty easy to miss. But what this means is something potentially incredible for future fights in the series. I think that this army that Yoru is creating may happen to contain some of Denji's past flames, so to speak. While I still think Rize will be on the side of Lil D and Denji, let's just list out some of the potential things we could see. We could see the Ghost Devil to represent Himino, most unlikely out of all of them, but I mean, Fujimoto loved Himino, so I could see her coming back. Bomb Girl Rize, of course, Makima and or Nayuta representing Control. Hey, it would also be cool and pretty interesting if they came back as twins this time. Blood Devil to represent Power as his best buddy ever. Duh. Gun Devil to represent Aki Honkakawa. Ooga booga. Yeah, pretty sure some of these are a stretch, but I think a great way to show Denji progressing as a character is to literally just confront his demons, aka his devils. Especially the devils who died and caused so much trauma from their betrayals and or deaths. Power in particular, I think, has to be there in part 3 in some form or fashion, because Power is arguably just as loved by Denji as Rize, Makima, and Nayuta, with of course a dash of Mitaka somewhere in there. Sure, he doesn't exactly love Power romantically, but you can't deny Denji loved Power and Aki as a family, a selfless and heartfelt love, a platonic love. But plus, it would just make sense for Yoru to stack up her side with devils that are the most logical and most powerful assets to have in an army. Power would allow her to control blood. Bomb is obvious as it's an extension of her powers to a degree. Ghost Devil because it would represent the ghosts of Denji's past and Christmas. And because also who you gonna call? And obviously Control has to be there and has to be a foe of Denji, something that he must face. Control is like the central figure throughout all of Chainsaw Man Part 1 and most of Part 2 in Denji's life. She is much too important to the plot not to have as one of Denji's obstacles, at least final obstacles. I also think this means we will get arcs based on taking down certain devils too, and through each arc, Denji probably gained some sort of piece of himself back that he thought he had lost prior. This should in turn address the myriad of concerns and criticisms from more critical Redditors that nothing is happening in Chainsaw Man Part 2. Because I expect a hell of a lot of stuff to start happening as the story continues to move forward. If you are one of those who genuinely doesn't like Part 2 and isn't salty over something dumb, then I think you guys and gals have plenty to look forward to with the potential the future has just because of Yoru's Devil Army. Now, here is another aspect that we cannot ignore. If you remember in Aging's World, it was revealed what would happen when humans live for eternity. They literally turn into human trees. That doesn't mean this entire plot has a plot hole in it, because as we know, the phenomena happens after essentially thousands of years. It's the same thing with nuclear bombs being reinvented. Just because it can happen doesn't mean that that is a plot hole. That is still 60-something years they took to reinvent that. All this means is that for thousands of years, human will war and eventually just turn into trees, leaving probably their offspring to continue war and repeat that process until everything is trees. So there is in some essence something that will hardcap Yoru's power level if you can think of it that way, but this is why they cannot let death be erased and Denji turned into a weapon. In other words, I do not think Denji will be turned into a weapon and erase Lil D. That is just the vibes I get. And that does not mean that it is the goal, so we will just have to wait and see what comes of this plot point and of the revelation in Aging's World and how that affects things. All in all, I'd say a slightly weaker chapter than 210, but 210 had so much going on. I also think this chapter is a very good follow-up, and if you think nothing is happening in this chapter and there's nothing to talk about, then I don't know, man. The fact Fujimoto literally told us to our faces that he has to cake up all the 4 horsewomen, if that's not enough for you for content, I think you may just be a boob man or woman, which is also respectable. I understand the appeal. Actually, you guys may be right. Chainsaw Man is actually really bad. Want more Chainsaw Man Gooner content? Check out this video here. I need your support. Make it a great day or not. The choice is yours.